Thank you. Oh my God.
Oh.
That's the sound. That is the actual sound of a life changing in an instant.
It's just pure, raw relief. You can hear decades of stress just vanishing.
That's Ed Bambas. He's 88 years old, and he's just been handed a check for $1.7 million.
And that one moment, that choked up disbelief, that's the core of this whole incredible story. But if we just stop at the tears, we are absolutely missing the point.
We are, because this deep dive is all about the shockwave that followed that moment.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's the premise, and I'm just going to lay it out rapid fire because the facts here they're just astonishing.
Go for it.
You have an 88-year-old Army veteran in Brighton, Michigan, Ed Bambas. He is forced to work 40 hours a week.
Full-time job.
A full-time job as a grocery store cashier. This isn't a hobby. This is survival.
Pure survival.
He'd lost his wife of 50 years. He was battling this crushing medical debt. And then, and this is the crucial part, his entire financial safety net just evaporates.
His pension was cut.
Gone. Wiped out by his former employer. So he's caught in this financial trap that, is statistically crushing millions of seniors across America.
Right. His story was completely invisible. It was tragic. And honestly, it was utterly common.
Until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't. That's when the complete anomaly happens.
This is where it gets unbelievable. A 22-year-old kid from Australia,
Sam Weidenhofer,
a social media influencer known for spreading kindness, he gets on a plane and flies 9,000 miles from Melbourne
all the way to a small-town supermarket in Michigan to meet this one man.
The TikTok video he makes, it ignites a global donation frenzy. I mean, a frenzy so massive, so fast, it just blew past all the normal charity records.
We are talking about a GoFundMe that hits $1.7 million.
Some reports say even higher, like $1.77 million.
And the timeline is the shocker. It happened in a matter of days.
It's a digital miracle, a stunning example of human compassion, but that's where the simple feel-good story has to take a pause.
And that's our mission in this deep dive. We've got to move beyond the headline and get into the actual mechanics of it. How does a social media post bypass everything and generate millions that fast?
And the bigger question.
Does this incredible, spectacular act of viral kindness just mask a profound, critical national failure in how we support our aging population?
Okay. Let's unpack this unbelievable story. We have to start at the low point.
Yep.
The personal tragedy that forced an octogenarian veteran back to work. So to really feel the impact of that $1.7 million, we have to understand the sheer brutal necessity behind Ed Bambas' job.
Right. It's not like he was bored in retirement.
Not at all. He was grinding out 40 hours a week on his feet at the Meijer supermarket in Brighton, Michigan. At 88 years old, it was about keeping a roof over his head.
I mean, it is the ultimate broken promise of the American dream, isn't it?
How so?
Well, think about it. Ed had done everything right. He's an Army veteran who served his country. He spent decades, his entire working life at General Motors.
He's a pillar of the industrial age.
Exactly. He retired with the expectation of a dignified life, supported by a pension he'd earned over half a century of work.
But then life it delivered a series of devastating blows that completely eroded that foundation.
And the first and most profound loss was personal. It was his wife, Joan.
A 50-year love story. The sources say she was the absolute center of his world.
And Joan suffered from a chronic illness. It required extensive and very expensive care before she passed away in 2018.
That's where the financial disaster really begins, isn't it?
It is. And this is a trap that hits millions of American families. People think Medicare covers everything, but the gaps, especially for long-term care, for specialized treatments, the prescription drug costs over years and years.
They're monstrous.
Ed accumulated massive crippling debt just trying to manage Joan's health care. We focus on the emotional toll of losing a partner, but the financial toll is what leaves this permanent crater in a family's security.
And just as he's navigating that unbelievable grief, processing 50 years of partnership just ending, the financial floor completely drops out from under him.
This is the part of the story that just demands critical attention. The pension scandal.
His former employer, General Motors, cut his pension.
It's a textbook example of how retirement security has just been eroded in the modern corporate world.
So wait, explain that. How can a company legally just cut a pension that was promised to someone?
Well, there are a few ways, and
Yeah.
it's complicated, but it's important. Ed's pension was likely what's called a defined benefit plan, or a DB plan.
Okay, that's
That's the traditional model. The company promises you a set, fixed monthly income for the rest of your life when you retire. It's their responsibility to make sure the money is there.
that sounds like a pretty good deal.
It was the social contract.
Hmm.
But over the last few decades, corporations have been systematically getting rid of those. They've shifted to defined contribution plans, DC plans, like a 401k.
Where all the risk is on the employee.
All of it. The market risk, the responsibility to save enough, it's all on you. Now for Ed, who's already retired, his company likely engaged in what's called de-risking.
De-risking?
Yeah, they might transfer the pension liabilities to an insurance company, or in cases of bankruptcy or major restructuring, the fund gets taken over by a federal agency, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the PBGC.
Which sounds like a good safety net.
It's a safety net with holes.
Yeah.
The PBGC insures pensions, but it has payment caps. So if the original fund was severely underfunded, your benefits can be reduced, sometimes significantly.
Mm.
For Ed, the result was the same, no matter how it happened.
The primary reliable income he'd counted on for his entire life was just gone.
Wiped out.
So he gets hit by two economic sledgehammers at the exact same time, massive medical debt from losing his wife, and the elimination of the security he had worked 5 decades to build.
And he said it himself. We have his words. He said, once my wife died, I didn't have enough income to pay for my home or all the other bills I had accumulated because of my wife's illness.
That quote is just a stark indictment of the entire system.
It is. An 88-year-old veteran facing the real possibility of losing his home. That's what forced him back to work. Not at 65.
At age 82.
At 82.
Yeah.
6 years before any of this viral stuff happened.
He started at a hardware store, then moved to the cashier line at Miser. And it's the sheer physical grind that should shock us.
40 hours a week at 88 years old. That is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, often on his feet, scanning groceries, dealing with customers. The toll on a body at that age is immense.
But the analysis here gets a bit more layered, right? Because the money was the grim necessity, but there was a secondary psychological reason he was there.
Absolutely. The sources point to this idea that the job was also a form of self-medication against his grief.
A kind of therapy.
Precisely. He wasn't just ringing up purchases, he was actively seeking connection. He said, and I'm quoting again, I talked to everybody that came through my cashier line because it helped me not become despondent on her loss. He was using the daily rhythm, the small interactions, the kindness of strangers to process the devastating hole that Joan's death left in his life.
So he was turning a job he was forced to take for survival into a kind of a makeshift grief support system.
And that detail, that small human detail, is why his story resonated so deeply later on. Customers weren't just seeing the cashier. They were connecting with a real person, enduring loss and still finding purpose.
People like Lexi Wallace, a regular customer who became a really vital part of his life.
And his dream, when he was asked, was just heartbreakingly modest.
What was it?
He just wanted to live a little somewhat of the life I was hoping for. He didn't want mansions or yachts. He just wanted the basic financial security to grieve in peace, the dignity that had been stolen from him.
Okay, so we have Ed Bambas, an elderly veteran in Michigan, just struggling to stay afloat. Now we have to jump 9,000 miles.
All the way to Melbourne, Australia, because this tragedy needed a completely improbable digital savior to turn it into a miracle.
The chain of events here is so unlikely it almost sounds like fiction.
The sheer distance, the generational gap, everything had to align perfectly. And that's where we meet Sam Weidenhofer.
A 22-year-old Australian social media influencer.
And Sam isn't just some random internet personality. His entire digital brand is built specifically on compassion.
Yeah.
On large-scale, random acts of kindness.
And his platform is massive.
Huge. 7.7 million followers on TikTok alone. Over 10 million when you count everything. His audience is primed for this kind of emotional, uplifting story.
Just think about the culture clash for a second. A Gen Z influencer whose entire world is 60-second viral videos.
Connecting with an 88-year-old man whose life was defined by, the industrial age and military service.
It's a cross-global, cross-generational intervention. It's wild.
And the connection itself was a complete accident. It wasn't planned.
Right. The catalyst was that customer we mentioned, Lexi Wallace. She knew Ed's story from seeing him every day at Miser.
And she was just watching Sam's content, which, often involves him tipping service workers huge amounts of money or helping people in need.
So Lexi, just on a whim, decides to comment on one of Sam's videos.
And she shares Ed's situation. She writes this emotional hook. She says, "I would love going to Niger to see him."
That one simple sentence, a little bit of yearning, a little bit of concern for him, that was the spark.
And the sources say she even got his name wrong at first. She called him Bob.
No way.
Yeah, which just shows you how powerful the core story was. The authenticity of her plea was the magnetic part. It immediately caught Sam's attention.
So he tracks Ed down to the Miser store in Brighton, Michigan, and he gets on a plane.
I mean, we have to pause on that for a second. The logistics, the commitment, this isn't a quick drive across town.
It's 9,000 miles.
Sam Weidenhofer flew halfway across the planet based on a single comment about an elderly cashier in a country he doesn't live in. That alone elevates this beyond just a simple video stunt.
I can't even imagine Ed's shock. He's just scanning groceries, doing his job, and suddenly this 22-year-old from Australia shows up with a camera.
And he starts asking about his life, about his wife, Joan, about his pension.
And Ed, being the open person he was, he opened up immediately. He told him everything.
He didn't hide his truth, the loss, the debt, the betrayal of the pension system. And Sam's first gesture showed the scale of what he wanted to do.
A tip.
A $400 cash tip.
Yeah.
Right there at the register.
And Ed's reaction was just immediate and heartbreaking.
He just broke into tears. You have to understand, $400 in that single moment was a massive amount of unexpected relief. But more than that.
It was being seen.
It was being seen. The act of a stranger showing that level of compassion just overwhelmed him.
And Sam realized right then, this isn't just a feel-good video. This is a powerful, condensed story about American economic vulnerability.
So he records his story. He captures the tears, the stark reality of what it means to be forced to work at that age, and the sheer modesty of his dreams.
And he makes that promise right on camera, the mission statement for this whole global effort.
He says, "I'd like to share your story and, get people to help you retire."
And the impact was instantaneous.
Genuinely. The video was posted on a Monday. Within just a few days, it surged past 10 million views. The algorithm saw the emotional power and just started pushing it everywhere.
And Sam himself framed it perfectly. He gave the intellectual reason that turned this emotional story into a movement.
He did. He said, "No 88-year-old in America should have to work because they need to, and that breaks my heart."
That quote is so critical because it frames this whole thing not just as charity, but as a form of social activism.
Right. Sam and his team realized Ed's struggle was a stark reminder that too many of our seniors, especially veterans, face incredible challenges just to survive. That narrative elevated the story from one man's personal tragedy to a public referendum on the entire safety net.
So the video just explodes,
Yeah.
and the GoFundMe campaign that Sam launched immediately becomes the center of what you can only call a viral tsunami.
I mean, the speed and scale of the response just demonstrates the unbelievable power of social media to mobilize massive amounts of money instantly.
Driven by what?
Purely by empathy, a collective emotional decision to fix one man's very solvable problem.
When you look at the fundraising numbers, it's astonishing.
Sam set up the GoFundMe, and whatever goal they initially had was just obliterated almost immediately.
We're talking about a digital gold rush.
Exactly. And the timeline, again, is the most shocking part. This money wasn't raised over months or weeks.
This was raised in days.
Just days. The total amount just soared. It rocketed past $1 million and then kept going all the way to $1.7 million.
Some outlets even reported it closer to $1.77 million after everything was processed. It's mind-boggling.
And this wasn't a few big corporate donors. The donor breakdown tells the real story here.
How many people?
Over 15,000 individual donors.
15,000.
That volume tells you this was a grassroots global effort. It was a collection of thousands and thousands of people all chipping in what they could.
And the range of donations was huge, right?
It was all over the map. The sources cite everything from a $10 contribution, probably from a student or someone on a tight budget,
All the way up to $10,000 donations from, high net worth individuals or maybe small businesses?
That range tells you everything. It means people from every socioeconomic background from dozens of countries saw Ed's face and they recognized something.
They saw their own parents.
Or their own struggles. Or maybe their greatest fear for their own future. And they felt this compulsion to do something, no matter how small, to solve this one, visible injustice.
And it absolutely went global. This wasn't just a Michigan story or a U.S. story.
Not at all. Donors were coming in from all over the world. It completely transcended borders, politics, Everything. It was all united by this one man's story.
And the GoFundMe page wasn't just money, right? It was flooded with comments.
Oh, it became an emotional testimonial page. People were using the comment section like a confessional, sharing stories about their own aging parents, their fears about retirement, the weight of medical debt.
So Ed's story became this universal symbol for the fragility of retirement everywhere,
And then the traditional media jumped on it.
which just poured gasoline on the fire.
It did. The media didn't just report the story. They acted as a secondary catalyst. You had ABC News, CNN, NBC, USA Today.
International outlets, too.
Everyone. They put Ed's face and Sam's mission in front of millions of people who aren't on TikTok.
So the social media starts the fire, and then the mainstream news turns it into an inferno.
It's that amplification cycle. It ensured the donations just kept surging. For about a week, Ed Bambas became the most visible face of the American aging crisis.
Which brings us to the really uncomfortable question, and this is where the deep dive has to get critical.
Right.
Why this story? Why did Ed's story capture global hearts so powerfully when there are millions of others just like him?
I think it was a perfect storm of narrative elements. You had the confluence of dignity and innocence.
What do you mean?
Ed had an impeccable background. He's a veteran, a dedicated worker, a man enduring this profound loss. His struggle was visible. It was immediate. An 88-year-old at a grocery register. You can't write a more sympathetic character.
But that wasn't enough on its own.
It wasn't. The narrative needed the benevolent catalyst, the young, charismatic Australian influencer. It created this story of a younger generation stepping up to fix the failures of the systems that betrayed the older generation.
It's an irresistible narrative arc.
It is. It allowed people to have this sense of collective catharsis. You can't fix the whole broken system, but you can click a button and help fix this one man's life. It's a visible, immediate, and dramatic solution to a complex, long-standing problem.
So after this, at this emotional roller coaster of the viral tsunami, we finally get to the crescendo.
The emotional payoff, the moment that all 15,000 donors were waiting to see.
And the point where Ed Bambas' life officially, irrevocably changed course.
The date was Friday, December 5th, 2025. Sam Weidenhofer flies back to Michigan, not just to visit.
He's there to deliver the results. And, of course, the entire moment is captured on video for the whole world to see.
And you get that raw, visceral sound we started the show with, that intake of breath, the disbelief.
It's not just happiness. You can hear the sudden, overwhelming end of 6 years of intense, crushing financial stress. It's the release of the fear of poverty.
And what's so telling about Ed's character is his immediate reaction. The first thing he thinks about is his wife.
He says, I wish my wife were here, but it's something that dreams are made out of.
He connects the financial relief directly back to the emotional reason for his suffering. It was always about Joan.
But then he said something really fascinating, something you wouldn't expect. He called the money a terrible burden.
That phrase, a terrible burden, is so revealing, and it's really the pivot point into our next segment.
Why a burden?
Because for someone who has lived a life defined by duty, by military service, by earning every single thing he received, this level of untethered, unsolicited kindness is overwhelming.
He felt the weight of it.
He felt the weight of every single one of those 15,000 donations. He felt this profound sense of duty. He said, I have to find everybody and say thank you. He felt obligated to reciprocate this vast global wave of compassion.
So let's break down what this actually means for him. The practical, life-altering application of $1.7 million.
Okay, the first most critical application is debt erasure.
How much was he in debt?
The sources specify that $225,000 of the total will immediately go to clearing his accumulated medical and household debt.
$250,000, just to get back to zero.
Just to get back to zero. That is the size of the hole that his wife's health care and that lost pension had dug for him.
So that just lifts this dark cloud that's been hanging over him for years, and the rest, the remaining, what, $1.475 million?
That provides true, undeniable financial security for the rest of his life.
It's his second retirement.
It is, in every sense, the second retirement he deserved all along. This money fundamentally changes his future. It means he can finally prioritize meaning, purpose, and comfort over just pure survival.
And his dream list, when they asked him what he'd do, it's just so touching in its simplicity.
It really is. He wasn't planning these elaborate round-the-world trips.
His immediate plans were to travel to see his brother.
Pick up golf again. A simple pleasure he'd likely sacrificed because of time and money.
And he even said he might. He might work another month or two at Meisure.
And that last detail is so telling. the option to keep working for a little while.
It shows it wasn't just about the money for him.
Exactly. It confirms the job had also become a source of structure and community. This money gives him the choice to leave when he's ready. He can transition to retirement with dignity instead of just collapsing from exhaustion.
So this segment closes the loop on that emotional story. Ed Bambas got his dignity back, courtesy of 15,000 strangers and an Australian influencer.
But now we have to use this profound victory as a lens to examine the system that put him in that position in the first place.
And this is where we have to shift gears, away from the feel-good story and into a really critical analysis.
We have to. Because Ed's story is a beautiful, spectacular exception that proves a very, very ugly rule about the systemic failures facing America's seniors.
Okay, so let's unpack this with some data, some policy. We can't let this one viral success story erase the reality that Ed is statistically not an anomaly.
He's not. His need to work at 88 is a symptom of a deep and widespread senior financial crisis. Look at the numbers. A huge percentage of Americans over 65 rely almost exclusively on Social Security.
Which was never designed to be the sole source of income in retirement.
Never. And that reliance is a direct result of the relentless erosion of traditional pensions, exactly like the one Ed lost.
We talked about that shift, from the defined benefit plans, the DBs, to the defined contribution plans, the 401ks. Why was that so disastrous?
It's a broken social contract. The DB plan promised certainty. It was managed by the employer. The DC plan offers variability. It exposes the retiree to market crashes, and it requires a level of financial literacy and self-discipline that, frankly, most people were never taught.
So when Ed's company offloaded that liability, he didn't just lose income.
He lost certainty. He lost the fundamental promise of his entire working life. And that shift has resulted in vastly reduced retirement savings for the average worker over the last 30 years.
And then you layer on the second catastrophic failure, healthcare costs.
Ed's debt, that $225,000, was almost entirely due to his wife's chronic illness.
That just highlights the devastating gaps in the system.
It does. Medicare, while it's vital, does not cover long-term care. And that's what can bankrupt a family, just like it nearly did to Ed. Even with supplemental insurance, you can be left with huge out-of-pocket expenses.
Medical debt is the #1 cause of personal bankruptcy in the U.S.
Consistently. And it disproportionately hits the elderly, who are often managing multiple chronic conditions. It creates this vicious feedback loop.
How so?
Seniors are forced back to work because their savings aren't enough. But that work often comes with physical demands that strain their health, which leads to more medical bills, which means they have to keep working. It's a trap.
Which brings us to the really uncomfortable paradox of this whole story. Viral kindness.
Right. Ed's story is inspirational.
Yeah.
Yes. But it is also a glaring symptom of a profound systemic failure. We have to ask the hard question.
Which is?
Why is the generosity of 15,000 strangers, which is basically a lottery win, the functional alternative to robust government support, to pension regulation, to affordable health care?
It really highlights the massive role that pure luck played here.
The luck factor is everything. For Ed, this miracle required a constellation of highly improbable events. The right store, the right sympathetic customer, the right influencer with the right size platform.
And the perfect emotional story that the algorithm decided to push globally.
The statistical impossibility of this outcome is precisely the problem. What about the millions of other seniors working minimum wage jobs as security guards or fast food workers?
The ones struggling silently who don't go viral?
Exactly. Viral kindness is intoxicating because it gives us that immediate clean relief. But it cannot scale. It cannot address a crisis affecting an entire demographic.
So in essence, a 22-year-old from Australia filled a regulatory and policy gap left by the U.S. government and corporate America.
He did. And this story forces us to feel the ethical discomfort of relying on charity for basic human dignity. Ed had earned his retirement. He didn't need charity. He needed the system he paid into for 50 years to honor its promise.
When charity becomes the primary relief for systemic policy failure,
it signals a serious breakdown of the social contract. Yeah. And look, $1.7 million is life-changing for one person, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to the trillions needed to actually fix the senior financial crisis. The focus shifts from solving the problem for everyone to just celebrating the one who got lucky.
And that's the limit of social media philanthropy.
It's superb at individual relief, one beautiful emotional success story. But it can inadvertently diffuse the political pressure we need for large-scale reform. We cheer for Ed, and then we forget about the millions still waiting for their own improbable miracle.
Okay, so to give this the final layer of depth it really demands, we have to circle back to the human element. What Ed's life, before and after, reveals about aging and purpose.
Right, we have to go a bit deeper into this idea of the elderly workforce. We know the primary driver for Ed was money, but his quote about avoiding becoming despondent on her loss reveals a much deeper truth.
The need for community.
The need for social integration, for structure, especially after a profound loss like that. The $1.7 million removed the necessity of the 40-hour grind.
But his thought about maybe working another month or two shows that the purpose he found at Meisure wasn't entirely disposable.
Exactly. Financial freedom gives him the choice. He can now balance leisure with the meaning he gets from connecting with people. The money didn't buy him a new life.
It bought him the opportunity to reclaim the old, dignified life he had already earned.
And this leads us to the most unexpected part of the story, the intergenerational bridge. We need to analyze that connection one more time. Why did a 22-year-old from Australia care so intensely about an 88-year-old American stranger?
It's the power of empathy, right, but amplified.
Amplified by a global platform. Sam Weidenhofer, who's part of the fastest-moving digital culture on Earth, saw Ed's fundamental humanity, his grief, his purpose, his dignity. Ed's vulnerability, which he shared so openly, made him this incredibly empathetic figure. It proved that authenticity just obliterates age barriers.
And this whole story really challenges the narrative we usually hear about social media.
It does. We often think of it as a swamp of toxicity and conflict, something that drives what we could call viral outrage.
Ed's story is the opposite. It's viral kindness.
And the difference is entirely in the narrative focus. Viral outrage is about division, blame, identity politics. Viral kindness, the way Sam engineered it, focuses on a universally agreed-upon ideal.
Honoring the elderly, respecting veterans.
Recognizing human dignity. Ed Bambas' face in that TikTok video became the human face of a complex policy failure, and it allowed 15,000 people to feel like they could solve one person's crisis instantly.
That difference is crucial. It's proof that these platforms can be a massive force for good when the shared human story is compelling enough.
The donation was, in a way, an antidote to the collective fear we all have of outliving our resources. And Sam's intent was clear from the beginning. He was motivated by a belief that every life has value, regardless of age or location.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes all it takes is someone willing to listen and to see and to honor someone else's story.
That's what Lexi Wallace did with her comment, and that's what Sam Weidenhofer amplified to the tune of $1.7 million.
So the story of Ed's second retirement is ultimately a sharp lesson about the fragility of the first one.
It's about the economic forces, pension collapse, healthcare costs that stripped him of his security, and the humanitarian forces, this global referendum on empathy, that gave it back. It gives us a moment of collective catharsis, that feeling that, yes, we can fix things, even if it's just one life at a time.
But the deeper reflection has to be on how we institutionalize that kindness.
How do we adjust our policies so that the dignity of retirement isn't dependent on the sheer luck of a 9,000-mile flight and a TikTok algorithm?
At the end of the day, Ed Bambas' journey is just a stunning triumph of humanity.
It's built on an impossible chain of luck, compassion, and global generosity.
Did you have a chance comment from a former customer?
The tireless dedication of a young man from the other side of the planet.
And the rapid, overwhelming empathy of 15,000 strangers.
It's a mirror. It reflects what we value. The dignity of age, the contribution of service, and the deep desire for financial release. It's proof that human connection, when it's amplified by technology, can literally be a $1 million lifeline.
Ed gets his second retirement now. He gets to travel. He gets to golf. He finally gets to live, as he said, somewhat of the life he was hoping for.
But the narrative doesn't, and it shouldn't, end with that big check. The final contemplation we have to leave you with is this. We celebrated the generosity that solved Ed's crisis. But how can we, as a society, use the emotional energy of this viral moment, this rapid-fire vote for dignity, to build durable, scalable systems?
Policies and support systems that ensure every 88-year-old veteran can retire with the dignity and respect they've already earned.
Without ever needing a viral miracle.
That is the essential question we have to grapple with long after the thrill of the viral check fades. So don't let this deep dive end here.
If this story shocked you, if it made you think,
smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more insights just like this one.
And click the link in the bio right now.
You can explore all the sources we used and dig even deeper into the context of America's aging crisis. We'll see you for the next deep dive.